So in this video, I want to talk about the good and the bad of Death Stranding. I recently put 100 hours into this game, and though I didn't platinum it, I definitely experienced all it had to offer. If I wanted the plat trophy, I would just have to go back and do a few tedious chores that I had left, but I can go back and do those whenever I like, but truth be told, I'm ready to move on from the game. Not because the game sucks or anything, but more just because I've had my fill. I 5-starred every vendor or NPC or way station or whatever you want to call them, so I don't really see the point in just churning out another 5 or 10 hours of deliveries and busy work just for that trophy. Maybe I will someday, but today is not that day. It's funny, back when Death Stranding released, it was extremely polarizing. You had people who hated it and called it a delivery or hiking or walking simulator, and simultaneously you had people hailing it as a masterpiece. And as I am oft one to do, and I think broadly speaking most people are this way, I landed somewhere in the middle. Even though the loudest voices are usually on the extreme end one way or another, there is a reason why common sentiment is referred to as a silent majority. Most people just play something or experience something and say, yeah, that was pretty fun, and move on. I didn't despise this game, but I certainly didn't love it. So much so that I'm debating if I even want to play the upcoming sequel, and in this video I will delve into why that's the case. So because so many people hailed this game as a masterpiece and talked about how unique and gripping it was, I wanted to see for myself. It seemed to me that most of the criticisms revolving around this game were the core gameplay loop. That loop being you controlling Sam Porter bridges and just lugging a shit ton of cargo around from one point to another. And let me be clear, this playstyle will certainly not be for everyone. And if this core gameplay loop doesn't grip you right away, then I highly suggest you move on to another game and never pick this one up, because that is basically all you'll be doing the whole time in this game. For me, however, I actually enjoyed this gameplay loop for one very specific reason. I love to be optimal. Alright, indulge me for a minute because I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent. My girlfriend and I recently went on a trip to Costco on a Sunday afternoon and it was busy as all hell. The parking lot was a total shit show. There was a huge line just to get into the parking lot and I told her to just turn down the first lane and see if we could find a spot. There was one spot with some carts taking it up, so I hopped out and moved the carts and she parked. And the spot was also right beside a cart corral, which was perfect. I always try to park as close to those as possible because then I have to take the cart less distance when I'm done. Sure, we were far from the Costco building, but I very often park far away at any busy mall or shopping center because I know that the time that it takes me to walk across the parking lot is a lot shorter than it takes to find a parking spot close to the building. You'll often just drive around for ages when you could have just hopped out far away at the first spot you saw and saved yourself a ton of time. So then, when we went to leave, there were two exits. One was super long and would have taken us forever to get out of, but the other was a bit more out of the way, but we were out in no time. So why the hell am I talking about a weekend shopping trip to Costco in a game review? Because that's just how I am as a person. My whole life, I have loved being as efficient as possible. I have a Snapchat in my memories about how happy I was one day when my commute to the gym only took 10 minutes instead of 15 minutes because I hit every single green light on the way home. I've literally always been this way. When my mom went into labor, I was born in a very small town and it was in the middle of the night. She headed to the hospital around 3 and I was born before 4 a.m. And apparently the nurse who was supposed to deliver me or whatever didn't even make it in time because she had to get called in due to it being the middle of the night. My mom always joked that I've been in a hurry from the day I was born. Okay, so now that that little side rant is over, let's bring it back to Death Stranding. This game is all about being as efficient as possible. You want to carry as many deliveries as you can and deliver them as quickly and efficiently as you can. I played the game on stream and when people would ask me how I like it, I would say it's, quote, oddly addicting. And it is. I would hop on in between intermissions of a hockey game just to do a quick delivery or build a zipline or road real quick. Stuff that wouldn't advance the plot as I didn't want my viewers to miss out on the main story beats, but just little side quests I could quickly do to make my next playthrough that much more efficient. One stream, I built roads for 4 hours straight. Another, I built zip lines for like 6 straight hours. Sure, these tasks may have taken a long time in the short term, but when I went to do future deliveries, they would be exponentially quicker. I've always been a big long-term goal guy. I don't care too much about short-term gratification. I'm always fine with waiting for things. In fact, I even love game delays. I'm actually a salesman's worst nightmare because I never impulse shop. The only time I really succumb to short-term gratification is food-related because goddamn life's too short not to enjoy good food. But outside of that, I'm very long-term goal-minded, so Death Stranding actually really appealed to me. Sure, spending a ton of time building roads and zip lines and other structures will slow me down in the short term, but it will make all future deliveries a breeze, and boy was I proven correct. I tried to build the roads as soon as possible, and then I was able to easily 5-star all the vendors. And in the later game, I did the same thing with zip lines, and it was so satisfying knocking out deliveries without ever having to encounter a BT because you were just ziplining past them. So if you're like me, then you will find this part of the game structure incredibly appealing. It was just so addicting being hyper efficient on these deliveries that I would intend to take a break and then I just wouldn't. Like, I'd have to go to the bathroom and then be like, I'll just do it after this delivery because that will put me at a better terminal. So I'll quickly knock this one out and then go. And then it unlocks some other delivery that I can do real quick and then double back for a triple delivery that I could set up. And next thing you know, an hour had passed and I still hadn't gone to the bathroom. You know when you and the homies are loving a PvP game and you get into that just one more game mentality? Well, that's how Death Stranding was for me. Just one more delivery. Girlfriend wants to make supper? Yeah, you bet, honey, I'll be right up. Just one more delivery. 45 minutes later, okay, honey, I'm really coming this time, sorry. So that is truly my biggest praise for the game. For me, the moment-to-moment gameplay loop was very fun and addicting. Until it wasn't. But luckily, the only time it really wasn't was after I rolled credits on the game, because at that point, I had done all I needed to do. I 5-starred every vendor, played the entire story, and read every single email and investigation in the game. Part of why my playtime is so long for this game is because I truly read every bit of text the game had to offer. I'm a bit OCD in that regard because I didn't just read it quickly or brush over it. I would read it and sometimes read it again just to really figure out what it was saying because the story in this game and the world it's in is extremely weird. The story is very strange and it's certainly not going to be loved by everyone. And man, I gave it more than a fair chance. Like I said, I read every single piece of text, watched every cutscene and listened to all the dialogue, but it just never gripped me. So with that, let's talk about the story. The high level overview is that we're in a world post Death Stranding. The Death Stranding is basically an extinction event that happened and voidouts occurred all across America, essentially destroying everything. And we play as Sam Porter Bridges, who is the son of the president, and it's our duty to deliver packages across America and reconnect the nation. We do this by activating a Cupid at terminals to connect them to the chiral network. This network essentially allows people to be connected again, to print materials that they need and whatever else. You also have a bunch of preppers and other NPCs who are skeptical of Bridges, which is the company that runs the chiral network and who Sam works for. So you have to perform numerous deliveries to them to earn their trust and eventually get them to take the plunge and get hooked up to the chiral network, or the UCA, the United Cities of America. They have some exposition once you do this and also give reasons for their skepticism via emails. So the game really is just leveling up all these different NPCs so you can connect all of America back together. But there are also some subplots going on and these are just really out there and I never got really invested in them. Luckily for me, I'm not a huge story guy when it comes to most games, but for games like this where you hear the story as a masterpiece, just like I heard with Last of Us 2, which I fucking hated, I definitely put more emphasis on story. And truthfully, I thought this story was just pretty stupid. I guess I should give a spoiler warning here, but since the game has been out for 6 years, I don't really know if that's even necessary. But the President of the United States is actually 2 people in the game. She is Bridget, Sam's mom, but not his actual mom, just the woman who raised him, and Amelie, a made-up person. See, Amelie actually lives on the beach, and the beach is essentially the world between worlds, an intermediary existence between the living and the dead. It's essentially the place where you go as you pass through to the other side. So if you die, you go to the beach. If you come back to life, you return to Earth, and if you die fully, well, wouldn't we all like to know where we go then? But let's just say the afterlife. So Amelie is actually an extinction event. She is the entity responsible for bringing about the 6th mass extinction, aka Death Stranding. Bridget is the woman on Earth, her physical embodiment, but Amelie is the spiritual embodiment which is tied to the beach. The game gives reasons for why this is. Now, I mentioned voidouts, which are basically big explosions, and how these come about are by BTs interacting with human bodies. And what are BTs, you ask? BTs are these weird invisible creatures, and the acronym literally stands for beached things. As a quick aside, I didn't mind the story too much, even if it was really out there, but I fucking hated the names in this game. There's a main character named Fragile who works for Fragile Express, which is another delivery company, and they have this cheesy line throughout the game where she goes, "I'm fragile, but I'm not that fragile."
I'm fragile, but not that fragile.
I just found it super cringe, personally. Guillermo del Toro is named Deadman, and he is basically a Frankenstein-type character who is a jumble of parts and not actually human. Die Hardman, just... Ugh, the names are so cringe, dude. Amelie, I'll give credit. That one was sort of cool, as at the end of the game she explains her name is Alma, which is French for soul, and then lie, as in she isn't who she pretends to be. I like that name because it's far less in your face. There's a meaning behind it. It isn't just, I die in an awful way, my name is Die Hard Man. Again, they give the reasons for these names throughout the game, but I just found them really cringe. Okay, aside over, back to BTs. When they make contact with a human, they cause a void out which makes a big explosion and decimates everything. These things are invisible, but we have a BB which can sense them. BBs are bridge babies, and they are a bridge to the beach essentially. These are babies that were born to mothers who are on the verge of death or something like that. I could look up the real definition, but basically they can sense BTs. And these BTs are something that you'll encounter that will fuck up your deliveries, so you have to avoid them. You also deal with mules, who are just rogue porters basically. They just try and steal all your cargo. And then you have terrorists, who are basically just more deadly mules. They will try and kill you instead of just taking your cargo. And again, it's just a super generic ass name. You also unlock different vehicles as you play through the game. So again, building roads is crucial because then you can use cargo trucks to haul hundreds of kilos worth of cargo. You are also rewarded for building structures by other players, and I thought this was kind of cool. And lastly, I talked about the gameplay loop, but the actual gameplay is quite bad. You'll get stuck on rocks that are tiny, trip on things, and even though you can regain balance by hitting your left and right trigger, you often fall just because you didn't think that you actually hit something in the first place. I could go on into a lot more examples, but the point I'm making is that the gameplay is super frickin' clunky. Combat feels really bad. There isn't a ton of it, but when there is, it just feels really shitty. Shooting feels bad, movement feels bad. Like, I would try and jump and it just wouldn't jump. You try to shoot your gun, but you gave a different input just before, so now he doesn't even have his gun out. It's just not a good feeling game. I like the weight shift stuff and the mechanics that you have to deal with when you have a massive delivery. It felt weighty and realistic, but in many cases, the game was just not responsive to my inputs, and that really bothered me. Oh man, and driving feels like fucking garbage. It's just not good at all. This game is basically like a C+ or a B-. Like I said, I enjoyed the thrill of being hyper efficient with my deliveries and the short-term pain, long-term gain philosophy that the game emphasizes. So the core gameplay loop that you are invested in for like 80% of the game does feel good. I want to be clear. But outside of that, I thought it was a pretty lame game. The story didn't capture me, the characters, while they did try and develop them and give them some backstories, I just didn't care that much about, despite reading all their emails and stuff. They also have a ton of cameos, like Conan O'Brien being a cosplayer. So that was kind of cool, I guess. There are also Easter eggs for Cyberpunk. Obviously we know this in hindsight, but this game came out before Cyberpunk, so that was kind of a neat addition. But yeah, the story was super weird, and the payoff for investing in the story was not all that great. Also, something I hated with The Last of Us 2 was that it dragged on at the end, and this one does too. I know it was to tie the whole story together and clear up all the questions that we had, but I didn't think the payoff was worth it. I could tell I was pretty much at the end of the game, so I stopped my stream. Then I did all the final game stuff in one final stream, and it took close to 3 hours to wrap everything up. It was basically a movie's worth of cutscenes, and while that isn't a bad thing when the story is gripping, I just found it super lame and not worth the long journey that I took to get there. Different strokes for different folks though. I have friends who love The Last of Us 2 and Death Stranding, and while I think people who love those stories are wholeheartedly wrong, it also serves to show that those stories do appeal to other people. And maybe they will appeal to you. Do you want to spend 100 hours to find out? For me, personally, I could have skipped this game and my life would be just as well off. I could have played other games that I think are better, but I don't regret my time with the game. Not everything is going to be a life-changing experience, and that's okay. My girlfriend reads a lot of books, and some of those are stinkers. You don't know till you try. For me, I tried, I said it's not for me, and that's fine. To be honest, I was far more annoyed with the time I spent in Last of Us 2, and I only played that game for like 30 hours start to finish, and I felt my time was far more wasted with that than it was with Death Stranding. So in conclusion, for such a polarizing game, I felt it was extremely average. I didn't hate it, though I can see why people wouldn't like it, and I didn't love it, but I guess I can see why some people might. Maybe I'm just an idiot and I'm missing why this is such a great story. I don't know. All I can do is give you my thoughts and move on to the next game. If you liked this video, be sure to leave it a like, and if you want more content like this, be sure to subscribe. If you want to watch me stream, follow me on Twitch at itstizzle7 or sub to my other YouTube channel where I stream and post gameplay clips for whatever games I'm playing. Lastly, if you're still here, thanks so much for watching to the end. It means a lot. And finally, I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Your support means the world. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.